So by popular demand, I am doing a video today on making hydrosols. Hydrosols are they are a form of herbal medicine. They are where a medicinal plant has been extracted and the water content containing usually essential oils and some other water soluble components are actually condensed, and what that produces is a hydrosol. And a hydrosol lasts for about a year. So it has advantages over a tea, which is only going to last about 3 days, even if it's in the fridge. And a decoction lasts about the same time. Obviously, tinctures and oils have longer shelf lives. Hydrosols are very safe. They're often used to treat children, and there's a really big traditional use of them in France, not so much in the UK, but lots of herbalists are using hydrosols. They also form the basis of ingredients for other things, like you could use them as the base of insect repellents, you could use them for the base of natural cosmetics, and you can use them for the base of natural creams. So they have quite a lot of uses. But the fact that they have that a shelf life of a year makes them a really handy thing to be able to make. Today I'm going to be making a lavender hydrosol, and this is the dried lavender that I'm going to be using. We're not going to be using all of that, but I just happen to have a lot of dried lavender. I'm going to be using the saucepan method. I'm not using a still, and this is really easy because you can use this with any saucepan really that you have in the kitchen, as long as you've got a lid, and you'll see how I put it together in a second. Then you don't need anything fancy. I'm just going to use a bowl and a ramekin. So this is the equipment that I'm going to be using. As you can see, this is quite a big deep pan. Actually use it for jam making, but any kind of saucepan is handy, and the amount that you'll make is dependent on the size of the saucepan that you're going to use. Now this saucepan has a lid like this, and we're actually going to be using it upside down like this. So if your saucepan, I advise you to use one that's got a little bit of a lip around the edge, because we're going to be putting water in here, and you want something as deep as you can to put water in the top of your saucepan. Also, if it's got that depth, it'll also have a bit on the top, which the hydrosol will drop off of this inside. So what happens is you have a ramekin, just a normal ceramic ramekin. Now this is going to have some heat applied to it because we're going to be boiling some water in here, but it's going to be quite a gentle boil. So just a normal ramekin is fine. You don't need any fancy equipment. So you place that in the saucepan upside down. Now what's going to sit on top of here is this bowl. Now it's important to get a bowl that is, it needs to be fit inside the saucepan. It's not something that's too tall when it's on the ramekin. And when I place that on, what happens is that the point of the saucepan is going to be pointing inside the bowl. If you can see that when I pop the lid on, it's going to be inside the bowl, but not touching the bowl. So I'm just going to take that out just while we get what we need ready. So the next thing to do is to add the herb. Now as I said, I'm going to be using lavender today. So now the amount that you use is actually dependent on the size of your saucepan. So it's something that's very easy to measure. I'm just gonna pop it in here, and then you'll be able to see. If you are going to use a ramekin, it tends to be, you want to fill it up about halfway up the side of the ramekin. That's the amount of herb that you want. It's going to depend. Now I'm using a dried lavender. You could quite as easily use a fresh lavender. You will still extract it. With hydrosols you can make them fresh, and you can make them with dried, so it just depends on what you've got. And it will make a very different scented, it will extract different essential oils, so it will have a very different smell to it when you're using a dried, especially with lavender. We just place some more in here. So I want a little bit more. You don't want too much, because what will happen is it's going to be wasted. You'll end up not extracting from it, and then it'll have to be thrown away. So you don't want any waste. So that's about a third of the way up the ramekin in this, and that's because the lavender flowers are very small. If I had something that was a much bigger chop, for example, say I was using lemon balm, fresh lemon balm, then that would take up a lot more room in the saucepan. So that is ready. Now the next thing we add is water. Now again, this is difficult to measure because it's going to depend on the size of your saucepan. Now you add just cold water in, and remember that obviously the dried herb is going to absorb some of that, so you're going to need to give it a bit of a stir, which we will do. Now you don't want the ramekin to be floating, so just make sure that it's sitting still on the bottom of your saucepan. So what you want is, you want all of the material to be covered. You want it to be wet. If you've got a lot of plant material, then you're going to need to add more water, but you don't want it so that there's so much water that it's sort of floating above. So you want it soaked, and there to be a little bit of extra water in there, but not too much. Again, if you look, we're not up to the top of the ramekin. There's a little bit of it's about 1 centimetre there on top of the ramekin. So that's, in my pan, the size that we need. But that is going to be dependent on the size of your saucepan. So you just need to adjust it dependent on the size of the saucepan that you're using. So we need to place in the bowl. Now what's going to happen is I'm going to turn this the heat on, and this is going to come to the boil. You need to do it so that it's not too ferocious. We don't want to be, because what's going to happen is the ramekin will start to move around as the water boils, and you can knock the bowl off of the ramekin, which we don't want. So you want it to be a simmer. We want the water to boil, because that's what's going to release the oils from the lavender. So we need it to boil, and then we need it to be a simmer. Now what's going to happen is, as this material comes to the boil and the essential oils are going to evaporate, they're going to hit the cold metal of the saucepan lid. They're going to condense, they're going to run down to this point of the saucepan, and that's going to then drip into the bowl. That is then going to be our hydrosol. It is what's going to be left in this bowl. So what we do is we just pop that on. And you could fill this with ice if you wanted to. That is another way of doing it, but you need to have something in there which is going to keep this metal as cool as you can, so that the condensation can take place. If you use ice, it's obviously going to last a lot longer. I'm just going to use cold water because it's easier. But what you'll see is, as the heat builds up in the pan, this water on top will no longer be cold, it'll start to boil because this metal is getting hot. So at that point you need to replace the water, or if you're using ice, if it's melted, then you can replace it with fresh cold water, so that this pan continues to be cold, because otherwise the condensation is going to stop. Now what I found, if you're using this cold water method rather than the ice, it'll last for about 10 minutes before it needs to be changed. And for usually when I'm making a hydrosol from a dried plant material, it's going to take about half an hour. So you're going to be changing it 3 times in that half an hour, and then that will be it. And then it'll be at the end of the process. So I'm going to turn the heat on now, and I'm going to turn it on to sort of a medium heat. It'll take a little while just to bring that to the boil, and I will come back to this video when I have the next stage of the process so that you can see what's actually what we've got in the bowl, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. So we're now at the end of the half an hour, and the hydrosol is now ready. If you can see, it's not that easy to see. The material, the lavender that we put in, it's actually gone a bit of a brown colour, and even though I know you can't smell it, the lavender material inside has lost a lot of its smell, and the hydrosol has captured that. So if you can see, I'm going to just lift that out. I realise it's difficult to see in a white bowl, but if I just tilt it like that, you can see that's the amount of hydrosol that we've got. So you don't make that much each time that you do it, but obviously you can add in a new lot of hemp and then do another amount. So that's about 150 to 200 ml that we've made there. And a good thing that you can do with hydrosols is if you just dip your finger in, they often have a greasy feel to them, so you can feel the essential oils that you've captured. So yeah, that's and sometimes you'll see it'll look a bit greasy on top, or it might even look milky. Again, difficult to see in a white bowl. But that is now your hydrosol. So that you can leave to cool for just until it's cold, and then that can then be bottled in a clean bottle, and that will last for a year. And then this now, the herb material that's left needs to be composted, because that hasn't really got anything left in it now. And as you can see, there isn't really any water left as well. We've completely boiled that water away to make the finished hydrosol. So that's it on hydrosols. Please take a look at my other YouTube videos.